Okay, we have John from Jext today. Welcome to our first talk show format of our podcast for some reason. Yeah, so this has been an amazing. Of course, the honor is all ours. First of all, this is the fifth EuroClojure. How many EuroClojures have you been to, and how is Bratislava EuroClojure for you so far?
So I'll answer those in sequence. So this is my fifth EuroClojure. I talked at the first two, and then I talked at the fourth. So I was actually hoping to talk at every single one, but I think they wouldn't allow that, and rightly so as well. He wants to hear from me, for that length of time. But this conference is great. The venue is fantastic, isn't it? And just the vibe as well. The sort of unsessions and chats that are going on at the top on the balcony, having a great time.
Yeah. So, and you are also sponsors of EuroClojure now, and you've been running Clojure consultancy for some time. And I've seen you speaking about Clojure at a bank, Clojure at a publishing company, and you have a lot of experience with building large Clojure projects. So, can you give us some idea about the difficulties or the fun stuff that you're facing building a Clojure consultancy?
Yeah, sure. So Jux has been going for about 4 years. And really, there's lots of developers out there that want to do Clojure. So I think it's kind of funny when you speak to companies and they say, "Oh, we'll never be able to hire in Clojure. We can't hire Clojure devs." There's more Clojure devs on the market right now that are actively searching for good projects, and there are the good projects. So every client that has dabbled in Clojure or used Clojure always reports back that the hiring is one of the best things about it, because they sort of get the CVs coming in, they get people actively seeking them out, and then the people that seek them out are top quality as well. So it's sort of a win-win for the employer. So that's one of the good experiences. And it's good for Jux as a company because we're very opinionated about our stack. We only do things using Clojure. If we had a client that said, "We love you guys, but we want to use Scala," then we'd probably just say no. So the way that we're so opinionated, I think, attracts good developers that want to work with us. So that's one of the strengths of Jux, and it's one of the things that really excites us.
So you started with Clojure almost how many years ago? From the beginning of Clojure, or?
I've been doing Clojure since 2010, so that's probably 6 years. So yeah, it's been a good journey. As you say, we started with Clojure in the banks. That's how I met my business partner Malcolm, because he was doing Clojure in a bank, and he had a blog called Clojure in a Bank, and my blog was Clojure at a Bank. So we sort of like looked each other up, and who is this person that's in my space, that's capturing my domain? So yes, we sort of met and we went for lunch, and then we said, we love this technology, and we love the fact that it energizes companies, and people want to do things simpler, and they want to reduce waste, and that could be the basis of a services company. We want to take that out and do it more often at more places. So that's what really inspired us to start with Just.
So we were having a chat before about building up a big project, and you were saying about refactoring code and stuff like that. And I think it's one of these things where, like you said before, if you're building up and getting excited about stuff, everyone's really loving greenfield projects. They love that kind of stuff. Every developer wants to be on the cutting edge of technology with greenfield projects. But I guess at some point you have to, get real, and it has to be brownfield, or it has to be, a year in or 2 years in. Things must change a little bit, when you're doing things like day in, day out in Clojure. The kind of like the excitement, the kind of passion maybe wears off. Or how are you finding that in terms of like, now you've done it professionally for so many years, how are you finding that experience?
I think that's a great question. It goes to the heart of one of the issues that I think does concern employers and does concern me, which is we're in a strange place where we've gone for a language where there's simplicity and there's less bloat and waste. But there is a side of it that can happen where developers look at this new technology, the new languages and frameworks, and sometimes they get a little bit drunk, like, oh, let's use this, let's use that, we're going to need this sort of distributed orchestration computation engine. We're going to, we have to have it. We have to, use spec or schema everywhere, like every single function. So I think we've gone for this simpler tool set, but then it's the next frontier of waste that bothers me. It's I think the way to do it is you still need leaders. I think is what you said, Ray. You still need somebody that's on that bridge, that's sort of making sure that developers are still adhering to business value and business focus, and we're not just picking up the technologies and going through it. We still maintain that business focus.
What are the challenges?
The challenges of
Maintaining that leadership. I mean, how you, because you are a leadership person. You are a leader. You're being a team leader, you're a business leader now.
Well, I think I've made mistakes in the past. It's, I think on one of our big projects, I was very much trying to get buy-in from everybody and treat the project as a democracy. It's almost like now we're in a new space where we've got really fantastic developers and the tooling is fantastic. There's a temptation to think it should all come together and it's just going to naturally evolve to be an amazing project. But I've since learned that there really is no free lunch. It's, software is not a democracy. You still need somebody that listens and understands and empathizes with the developers on the ground, but ultimately sort of maintains the sort of respect of the trust that the clients put in us when they bring us onto their projects and they spend all that money basically to craft that delivery team.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I mean I am also like into architecture and stuff like that, and we work with projects in an enterprise architecture mode where you have to tell people, okay, well, if you're going to do persistence, for example, you have to do it a certain way, use a certain library. You don't want all the styles to be completely different from one project or one application to the next. Obviously, things are going to evolve. You're not going to say, right, okay, you guys didn't use spec in the past, you use schema, so you've got to change everything tomorrow. There may be some advantages in doing that, but often it's not going to be the case. You're going to have to live with code that's a year or two old, and it's going to have to evolve over time when the business value is there, when people want to change it, and so is that something which you're also thinking about? Is how do I keep things fresh, but at the same time maintain an existing code base that is still serving the business?
I think so. Yes, it's like I'm a big believer that code always evolves. It's like the sort of I really got into Paul Graham's kind of writings about the organic bottom-up Lisp, and also like this idea that your software is like a house. It's like you move in, you live in there, and you're constantly trying to make it better. You're constantly sort of trying to enrich the style of it. But I think the organic bottom-up thing is important because you're ever evolving the business language, and the business is never done. So the code is always looking to sort of evolve and to meet the business halfway. So you layer on that business domain on top of the code, and I find that particularly appealing. I've just come onto a project that I was on 3 years ago, which is the big newspaper. And there's 25,000 lines of code there, and for me, it's been a fantastic experience to go back to a code base that you were primarily involved in, and it was a bit of a shock at first because I sort of rocked up and one guy was quite angry with me. He was like, exactly, and he said, you built it too fast, there's not enough abstractions, there's not enough this, there's not enough that, there's not enough types, not enough schemas. And at first I felt dismayed actually. It was I kind of wrote this and these people aren't happy, and it's now showing some problems. So I spent the first few days completely humbled actually, because I went in there thinking there might be some sort of respect for what we did, or there might be some sort of praise, but it was kind of the opposite. So it's like it's like being judged ultimately, when you pass on or something. And so no, it was nice, but then I'm really happy now because I've proved to myself, I think, and maybe we can share this in some way, that you can refactor a huge Clojure code base. Like, this code base is really big, and it needed refactoring. Like, and the smart people that were there when I joined them, their ideas were really good actually. Like, because they've been with it, they've seen it with fresh eyes, but they couldn't quite have the capacity, I think, just to implement some of those changes. So we had a sort of perfect storm where I had the energy, I had the experience of the code base, but I had enough of a gap and someone else's ideas to how to improve it. And myself and somebody else from Juxt, we worked there for about 2 months, and we've just refactored so much of it. And you can refactor a big Clojure code base, you can untangle it, you can bring it back, you can separate it, you can do these things. And I just don't think the same would be true if it was like in Ruby or Java, where it just explodes out. So it's still a win for Clojure, even though it's been a bit of a painful experience.
Okay. Well, obviously you're a busy man. EuroClojure is a busy event for you, Jon. So thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to the deafened guys on the podcast. We put it on the podcast. This one, if it all works out with the YouTube and our new tech lead here, our new media engineer. Then hopefully we get it out on the YouTubes as well. And so thank you very much. Really appreciate it.